friends and neighbors. Welcome in the light, where laughter's the answer and hearts are shining bright. With calloused hands and wits, so raise your sharp. Let's praise a place where love ignites the spark. In the field of dreams, where sweat and hope combine, we'll raise our voices high and toast to the divine. Be your best and let your spirit always rise. Give thanks for every moment under sunny skies. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share the sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share the sunny side life.
Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. It is the end of April, and we're fast approaching May. April showers bring May flowers, and I hope that's the case because, remember, I did burn that whole strip just along the north edge of my alfalfa field earlier this spring that was supposed to be wildflowers, so I'm anxiously awaiting to see if these April showers truly do bring those May flowers very soon. Of course, it will be May by the end of the week here, and we're looking forward to all kinds of things that are happening this time of year here at Sunnyside. We've got our son Colin, who's involved in track and doing quite well, actually, in some activities and events that his older brothers, who also did well in track, did not participate in, to include the high jump and the long jump and hurdles, for crying out loud. So things that involve jumping seem to be right up Colin's lane, so to speak, figuratively and literally. And of course, we're getting ready to do the first mowing and getting the yard ready and the trimming of the trees and the cleaning up of the property, just like you, I assume. If you've got a place of your own to call home and the center of the universe like we do here, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to take care of all these things, to keep that garden of your life in shape the way you want it to be. That's our responsibility, I suppose, as children of God, to take care of the Eden that we're provided. And so that's something that we're working on this time of year. I look forward to it, and I also dread it at the same time, because making everything make everything look beautiful takes quite a bit of effort, and effort is something that we're going to talk about today. So let's jump right into it. I first of all want to say that, and I mean this with all due respect and absolute love for my wife, but I believe she's got a little bit of an online ordering problem, or maybe it's more along the lines of Liam Neeson a la Taken. She's got a special set of skills.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
For online shopping. And this has all come about, well, look, the FedEx and the UPS guys know our property well. It seems like things are arriving nearly every day and have been for many, many years. And I'm always wondering, what is this? What is this thing that we've needed so badly that has now arrived? And it's kind of fun to open these boxes as they arrive, sometimes dusty, sometimes a little bedraggled, but inside is the little treasure, I suppose, that my wife felt that we needed. And I think she's right 96% of the time. Just throw out a random number there about what it is that we need. But recently what has been happening is we're renovating parts of a rental property that we own, and that has led to really a slew of online ordering of things that are necessary for the house. In my wife's mind, we have two different minds about what needs to be done with the home. So how this works is we have a rental property, a house that we bought in town, and then what's going to happen is our son Jack, who's in college and goes to a university in town, is going to live there for the remainder of his time at school, and he's got a couple of roommates, and so we thought, well, this is a good way to invest and also to provide and have something as an investment, I suppose, down the road, but also to teach some lessons, and we'll see what happens with it. And so that's what we have done, and it's a house that was kind of an older two-story craftsman house. Early 20th century, 19 teens in that realm, and very well taken care of by the previous owners. They lived there for decades, and there are just some updates that need to be made, and we're in the process of getting those so that it'll be ready for them to live in, so they can enjoy the comforts of the 21st century with some updated wiring and some improvements to the basement and just some minor things here and there. But we get to pass along our stuff in a process like this. So when your kids move out, even whether it's to go to college, or they ultimately graduate from college, or they go into the workforce, or whatever it happens to be, and they get their own place, they need stuff. And I think we all remember when we were young how we didn't have stuff, and you're surprised at how much stuff you need. And now I look around at Sunnyside and I'm like, man, we've got a lot of stuff here. And of course we need it all for one or two particular uses, depending on where it's at. If it's in the house, obviously we use those things every day. If it's in the shop, I might not use them very often at all, but by golly, having the right tools at the right times makes all the difference, as every wannabe craftsman knows. And so we get to, in opportunities like this, with 4 boys, one still at home, the other 3 out and about in different places, Jack in university, and the other 2 off and with their own homes, and have been for a while. We get to pass along our stuff that we don't need, that we want to generously provide to our children, and give them some old dishes and old cups and our old glasses and some furniture that we don't think we need anymore. But what we really are doing is taking this opportunity to get new stuff for us, because we have to replace the stuff that we gave away so generously. And so that's part of this exciting process of online ordering as boxes arrive every day. And whether it's a couch or plates, or, like I said, bowls, or we just pass it along, and get some pans, get some different pans. It gives you an opportunity to sort through your stuff and go through things that you don't need. I recently went through my closet and got rid of just a whole bunch of stuff there that I've collected for clothing, and those ultimately go to Goodwill. But before they do, now that I have sons that are older, they can pick through anything that they think that Dad had that might be might fit their wardrobe. And that turns out that it's not as much stuff as I thought. I thought I had good stuff, and apparently that's not the case. So we'll see. The Dad store still remains open over in one of the bedrooms there, and they can pick through it as they see fit and add that to their own collection, or it goes to Goodwill. That's how that works out. So you get rid of stuff, you get some new stuff, and that's the way it goes. We get new stuff, he gets our old stuff. That's how it works. Now, I get to, in this process, I get to build stuff, which I like to do. And so if you've been listening to this program for a while, you know that I like to do hands-on projects involving all sorts of construction and projects. And I like to do things and try to do them well and long-lasting. My dad told me as a teenager that I have a tendency to overbuild stuff. And he's right. That's true. I do. But I want to make sure that it lasts. And so I've gotten better, I will say, at knowing what type of materials I need to use that will serve the purpose of lasting a long time, but also not be overbuilt so obviously. And so that's something that I've gotten better at. I will say that. And in this renovation process of the rental property, it is It's going well. I am enjoying it most of the time, but not all the time. Not all the time. There's some stuff when you renovate an old house that is just, kind of, you scratch your head and go, what were they thinking? How is this going to work here? I don't think that's how that's supposed to be done. And so correcting problems and trying to foresee future issues that could develop if you don't take care of them now as you go through the renovation process, and paying attention to things like plumbing and electrical and all of those things, and what would happen in a worst case scenario, say like the basement floods or there's a water issue. How does that affect what we're trying to do down there? The house itself doesn't really need much renovation. It is an older home, but it's been, like I said, very well taken care of. And so it's primarily just a couple of things, few things upstairs, and then some moving of different things around in positions, and then also spending a lot of time on the basement, getting the basement up to par. And the basement is good. It's a solid structure. We had it inspected and all that stuff, but we're trying to finish it out, and we're doing that. And that's what I've been working on and will continue to do for a while until it's all complete, even as these guys move in. Our son Jack has got a couple of roommates, and they're great guys, and they will take care of it. And that is something that is beneficial, I suppose, about living in a rental. You have to learn how to take care of your own house. When you're in a dormitory in college, you are getting that first experience of, first of all, living with somebody else that's not your relative, and then also just sharing space and keeping things organized as older, late teenage boys, early 20 young men can do to the best of their ability. But then they move into a home, and hopefully they have some of those skills, and then they've got lots more skills to learn, so that as they grow and develop and become a man, they have to know how to do stuff. And so I'm looking at this as an opportunity to help teach my son Jack, as I've done to some degree with our oldest Tate, and then Tanner, who's got both of those boys have their own homes, and they have to make improvements and renovations, and I've helped with those type of things as well, and will continue to do so. And it's a time to share whatever knowledge I have as a dad, and try to pass that along. My dad did that for me, but one of the things that my dad also passed along to me was that he didn't learn everything from his dad. I can tell you that, having bought my grandpa's house, about construction. He learned a lot of his construction and just the knowledge of renovation by doing it. And growing up, I grew up in an old, same type of house from the early 1900s, and constant renovation, and just all the way through high school, there was some sort of project that our family was always doing. We were always renovating, never stopped renovating. And so that cycle has repeated itself in my generation as I continue to renovate and enjoy renovating, and then also now knowing, what projects I can undertake efficiently and do well, and then recognize that there are some things that are maybe out of my scope in being able to accomplish it in a timely fashion. So, or I just don't know how to do it, and then you do have to hire sometimes an expert to do that type of stuff. So this is an opportunity. My dad learned how to do stuff because he also went out and worked in construction. And so I did the same thing after, while I was in college, I worked in construction as well, and then did some more construction later on, and then even had my own little construction business for a few years there before I became a recruiter full-time with the Army National Guard. And boy, you learn a lot trial by fire. And so that's good for me. It helps me get the tools that I need to do the things that I continue to do, and the experience that I need to continue to do and undertake projects that I'm doing now. But back then, boy, I hate to admit it, some of the customers 20 some years ago that I was learning as I went too. So that's the way it works. And there's a new problem. The problem solving that goes along with renovation and remodeling is part of the fun for me. And I do like, drafting and planning and designing and correcting and just troubleshooting. And so those are things that I enjoy doing. Those are things that my dad did. He was full-time farmer, and yet at the same time had to be a jack of all trades. And I just feel like that's a great way for a young man to be, so that you become an old man and know how to do stuff. And so whatever it is that your career happens to be, you should still learn how to work with your hands and do stuff and be innovative. And that's why we say, keep your hands calloused, stay busy, and follow the Lord. And that's what you need, particularly in renovation sometimes, because you just have to look to the heavens and go, what am I doing? And so this is a chance to do that. Jack gets to learn stuff as we do stuff together. Although I will say, because he's approaching finals this week, or will be conducting finals this week, he's not as handy and helpful and present as I would necessarily like as I work on some of these things in the basement. But I know, too, that time will come. And then, of course, he'll start his job as he works all summer. And then, it's still kind of father renovates alone situation. But he'll have the opportunity to learn stuff, and he does help me out. Just the other day, I had marked out all of the studs because we're furring out the basement so that we can finish it with drywall. And I had all of the studs measurements on the top rail, and he would then come and he would cut those studs, and then I would put them in place, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it turns out that even university students, smart kids, are not necessarily fantastic at fractions. And so we had a conversation about the difference, say, between 3/8 and 5/8. The difference, of course, is a quarter of an inch. And that quarter of an inch, when you're trying to put studs in place, makes a big difference. Either if it's a quarter inch too big, you got to cut some off, and that's fine. But if it's a quarter inch too small, you got to start all over. And so he only did that one time. The rest of the times he was really good. And then I will say, for efficiency purposes, I did notice that he would take one measurement, go up out of the basement, out into the garage, cut one board, bring one cut board back, put it in place, get the next measurement, and repeat. And I'm like, well, you could just write down or take a picture of all of these measurements, cut them all, and then bring them all in, and then we would just be, it seemed like fewer trips to me. But everybody has their own style of work, I suppose, and so those conversations continue to occur between father and son to some degree. He learns how to build stuff. He learns how to take that second measurement, measure twice, cut once. He's also learning how to care for a yard, because when you live in a dorm, or he knows how to care for a yard because he works at a golf course, and he's mowed our yard out here for many years, and knows how to do a good job with that, takes pride in it. Moving snow was something that he did this winter, even though he wasn't living in that house. He said, hey, listen, you're in town, and town people are weird. You got to move that snow on the sidewalk and keep it clear so that people walking by don't slip. You're responsible for that. And he took that seriously, and he moved the snow diligently the few times that he needed to. You have to learn how to have neighbors, because he grew up in the country. And we have neighbors, but our neighbors are at least, several hundred yards away or further. In the country, you call your neighbors the guy that lives, on the next, quarter section somewhere. He could be a mile or so away, and those are still your neighbors. But in town, they're right beside you, nestled in, house to house to house to house. That's why I live in the country. I like to have some elbow room, and I like kind of being the king of my own kingdom out here in the sticks. But he's learning how to live in town, and I think that's an important thing to do, because you have to have neighbors, and you have to learn how to be a good neighbor. Which is important. So I've lived in town. My wife has lived in town, and now we live in the country, and that's an opportunity to learn what it's like to have neighbors. And fortunately, he's got good neighbors around him, and so that's we've met them and we know them. And of course, it's a small town, so we've known them for quite some time, both on all sides and around. And so that's a good thing. But young man has to learn how to be a good neighbor. Also has to learn how to keep that whole house clean and maintained, and pay attention, and if there's a problem, and recognize too that you're going to have college friends that stop by because they don't have a house. A lot of the In fact, his two roommates came from other rentals and in town, and the condition of college rentals in a college town are not what we would say 4-star in most cases. And so there is we're not owners of many rentals, and that is not our intention. We have no desire to be landlords for a variety of properties. I know that is a form of investment, and it's a way, but there's also the problem with that for me is that I have a different type of conscience that says I don't want to own crap. And that crap can be very lucrative. You just keep turning it over, and college students, they keep coming and they keep going, and you just keep renting to new people, and the quality of your property continues to degrade. The investment that you would have to make to keep those properties up when that many people continue to live in them is a problem for some people like me. I don't want to own crap, and so it's hard for me to see a problem and not fix it and do it well. But for folks who are successful in the rental industry, they apparently don't have that form of consciousness, where they're just like they don't care what their property looks like inside or out, and I do. So we only have one property, and we maintain pretty tight control over what it appears like on the outside and what its functions are and how it appears on the inside, and that's how it's going to stay because I don't want to be known as a slumlord, to be quite honest, and that's not going to happen. And so that's where we stand with that, and of course we have to pass that along to our son who lives in this rental property, and he has to know how to do these things, and he has to know that his college friends can stop by and they can gather together and watch the draft and play video games, etc. But I've told him, look, your friends don't own anything. They don't have an ownership of anything, and so because of that, they don't maybe have the same perspective of keeping things nice. They'll traipse right over your carpet. They'll drag mud in this time of year. They'll leave their trash around, even though there's a trash receptacle very close by. These are things that people who don't own anything do. They don't own anything, so they don't have any cares about that. It's not their problem. And even if they're your friends, they can be irresponsible. And so that becomes a new hitch in the giddy-up as a developing adult, is taking care of your stuff because it's your responsibility. And then that means communicating that you need to have your stuff taken care of by the guests in your home. And so that is something that he is learning as well. And then I think with all of this, taking our old stuff and putting it in this rental and then passing it on so that it can be used, so that we then can get newer stuff. And that's why your grandpa and grandma's houses are so nice. First of all, there's no kids living in there, and they've gotten all of their old stuff that they don't want and passed it on to their kids, and they've got new stuff that they intend now to have. When you have little children, everything you have is plastic, probably because you don't want to break anything. It's going to get broken if it is, and you just and then you start making, as the kids get older, you start making renovations, and you make nicer improvements, and eventually they're gone, and you miss them, and it's sad that you have a nice place at that point. And then you as a kid, you remember going to your grandpa and grandma's house, and it was always so nice and clean, and all their stuff was organized. Yeah, because it's just them. And they've got what they need now, finally, after decades, all in order. And it makes me wonder, with all of these boxes arriving and the work that we're putting in on getting this rental ready, and just the work that we've done on the other homes that our sons live in, and just the things that we do as parents, it made me wonder: are we doing too much? Are there potential risks to doing too much for your kids? And I think that there are risks with that, and of course there are risks associated with everything. And so, how do we wisely navigate as parents what it is that we want to help our children with, make and have an opportunity for relationship building, working together, teaching skills, lifelong lessons, but at the same time, trying to instill that wisdom, but they still have to struggle a little bit. My first college apartment was one of those slumlord situations. It was not good, and I think that's the vast experience of most people that have gone to college and then lived off campus, is that you're probably renting a home from somebody who just has that home as an investment and has no intention of making anything but the most dire and necessary improvements to that property. And that's just, the polar opposite of how I feel about, the center of the universe and Sunnyside and taking care of our stuff. And if you own something, that you should take care of it. And so it's just a very different mindset, which I don't have and don't intend to. And so I lived in one of those apartments. It was a big old house that had been moved off of a campus of the university into another part of town, and had been split into 4 units. So it was a 2-story big old house, and it had been split into 4 units, single bedroom units, and everything was kind of oddly done. And it was just an opportunity to get as much money as you possibly could out of one house. And so I lived there and had that experience. And now my kids have had similar, older boys have also lived in rental property. As after their freshman year, they moved off campus, and they also experienced those things. I would say Tanner had maybe a closer experience to me than the oldest boy. Tate, he was in a newer unit that had been built kind of for those purposes, that were rentals off campus, but then Tanner lived closer to campus in a much older part of town, in a much older home, and it looked and it smelled like it, to be honest with you. And but that was an experience. So in those type of things, there's a little bit of drudgery and difficulty and maybe grossness, and you think to yourself, when I get my own place, I'm not going to live the way that I live now as a college student. And that's a good lesson to have. Both Tanner and Tate have very nice places that they have upkept and they're taking care of, and learning those lessons of maintenance of the yard, the interior, the exterior. And they have plans too of improvements that I continue to get roped into and enjoy doing, and try to make the time to do so. So are we doing too much? Does the generational wealth, the ability, say, for us to buy a house and turn it into a rental property for our children, and other things like that we do, does that wealth dissipate? And that is a question that I think the answer is yes. I think that, it is yes. There is I don't know if you learned this in college, even though at this point, all 3 boys that went through or are in college were all business majors, and Tate went on to law school and is now a lawyer and working in the business field very much. And that is something that you do learn in business school, in university, that rich people don't stay rich. And that's something that is worth discussing, because I think there's a lot of people that believe myths that rich people are just rich people. They stay rich. Their kids are rich. Their grandkids are rich. Everybody's rich. And that's why it's easier for the political mindset, for example, of, say, socialists to be able to say, well, if we just took all of the rich and we made them pay their fair share, which no socialist ever explains exactly what their fair share is. They just say, pay your fair share, then we could have that, and we would disperse that wealth, and then everybody would have a little bit more, and we would be, and everybody would be better. And that's stupid. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It never does work. And the reason it doesn't work is because it comes down to wisdom and understanding how money even works, and that money is a tool, and it is something that can be used as a tool and built up if it's used correctly. But it is also not permanent. Just like your yard requires maintenance, so does your management of wealth. And I'm not a wealth manager, any of those things, so I'm just repeating the stats that I've read as I thought about this. And as a dad, I'm thinking about, like, how do you instill wisdom into your children so that they understand that the things that they have are they're not permanent, and that in order to take care of those things, one, the things that you have or that you seek out to have cannot become your false god, because you can't take your wealth with you to heaven. At the same token, wealth disappears with unwise choices. And that is why 70% of first generational wealth is gone in the second generation. So what that means is that statistically in the United States, and probably worldwide, but specifically in the United States, if your parents have a lot of money and they share that with you as a child, you're the second generation of that wealth, and you will fritter it away. There's a 70% chance, 7 out of 10 says you're going to blow that money, knucklehead. You're going to blow it because, for one, you didn't earn it, so it doesn't mean the same thing to you. In the same way that the college friends that stop by your apartment that don't have an apartment of their own are going to trash your place because they have no understanding of value, especially when it involves other people's stuff. In the same way, you will look at that money as other people's stuff and spend it and use it in a way that tool was not intended to be used. And so that's a problem. And by the third or fourth generation, 90% of that wealth that was established in the first generation is gone. So 9 out of 10 grandchildren will either fritter away their money or not have it at all. And that is... that it's daunting in one way as a parent. If you try to prepare for the future and be wise and teach your children how money actually works, it's daunting to think that wealth will just be frittered away by your offspring or their offspring, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So according to the Heritage Investment Group, I'll just use them as an example. You think about folks that are that have grown, that names famous in the United States of America for wealth, like the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and the Gettys. They're all famous families because of their success in building and then also maintaining generational wealth. Not maybe so much the Vanderbilts, right? That money's all gone, it seems, but the Rockefellers have an interesting family program of how they manage their wealth, and the Gettys are still doing fine, obviously. So they've successfully passed down millions and billions of dollars to their progeny. But most people, most families are not successful in doing that. And as we've already discussed, 9 out of 10 families that first generation that builds that wealth, their grandchildren will have it frittered away, which is probably frustrating because the intention is not to worship the wealth that you have, but just to take care of it like a garden and let it continue to produce for you, and so that you are able to be useful in your family for generations to come, and to your community, and to your country, to your God, to all of these things, and that is a good use of funds, and yet most people. They inherit money, they blow it. And why is that? Well, I think that there are some, the Heritage Investment Group says there are some people, I'm not affiliated with Heritage. I'm not I don't have anything invested with Heritage. I'm just using their article so that I can back up my feelings on this as research. But they say that there are several assumptions and myths that that result in this situation of how, whatever you have as that first generation gets frittered away. And the first one is wealth lasts many generations. That's a myth. It doesn't. As we already said, 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation. That's their kids. Their kids fritter it away. And then 90% of families lose their wealth by the third generation. Their grandkids fritter that wealth away. So Elon Musk, watch out. You've got all of these illegitimate children all over the place, and you're the richest man in the world. But don't worry, they will fritter it away. Or perhaps their grandchildren will, their great-grandchildren. It might take a little bit longer to get rid of some of that stuff. But he's got so many kids, right? The chances of most of that wealth being frittered away in the next 70 to 100 years or less is significant. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works. Many reasons that wealthy families lose their wealth over time. And part of it is that parents just don't talk about money with their kids. So the kids, not only do they not know how to hold a hammer correctly or take measurements with fractions or mow the lawn or know when to treat the lawn or how to get rid of dandelions or know how to do stuff, they also don't know how to manage their own money. So, yes, there is a conversational issue of educating and making wise our children. Whatever that case may be, whether it's the families just outright neglect to do it or they foolishly believe that money will just continue to come in or regenerate itself. Money doesn't grow on trees, as Grandma would say. And so those are things that that builds that myth that wealth lasts many generations. In fact, it dissipates within the second and third, the children and the grandchildren, and it's gone, baby, gone. Another myth that they point out is all family members, and this is tied to the first one, are smart about money. And so there might be people who are in your children or perhaps your grandchildren. Maybe you do have those conversations, and they have a base understanding of how investments work and how money can work for you. And maybe that is something that you've talked about and done so hopefully in not a worshipful way of money, but an educational way, in the same way that I would say this is how you take care of a tractor. You have to change the oil, you have to maintain it, you have to pay attention to it, and then it has to be used for what it was intended in the first place as you work with it. And so those things, those lessons might get passed down, but that doesn't mean then that everybody is going to use that tractor correctly. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to still make the smartest investments with the money that they have. Or more than likely what will happen is they think that they can, because they've got this free, if they've inherited money, they've got this free money over here, and then they could just go ahead and turn it into something that they want, but not that they need. And so then they really cut that plant off at the root, and it no longer produces anything for them because they decided that they needed to buy a depreciating asset like a new car. Children shouldn't have new cars. They should have old cars and drive those old cars until they can appreciate how to take care of the old cars and eventually work up to a point where they can buy a new car without taking out a loan. That's my opinion. Now, if you have a financial advisor, those people can help, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily, you hope that they're doing the right thing for you, but obviously it takes a little bit of wisdom given to your children and grandchildren about even understanding how financial advisors and wealth managers work, because they are going to get theirs. They will get theirs off the top, regardless of whether you win or lose. And so you still have to be involved. Another myth is that parents talk to their kids about money. And again, tied back to the first two, certainly communication has increased. I think it is in some ways easier to talk to our parents and our kids maybe than it was a few generations ago. But with very wealthy families, it's easy to assume that money and wealth, they're just talking about that all the time. That dad is or mom is talking about their investments and why they chose this and why they're monitoring it and whatever it happens to be. And the reality is that children, they might receive an inheritance and have no idea how that money was turned from a small pile of savings into a large pile of distributable wealth. And so this in turn can cause all kinds of problems because of lack of financial knowledge, and that leads to all kinds of problems, spending habits that are bad. And then, of course, when you spend the money and they're bad investments or bad purchases, things that you don't really need, you're not looking long term, then that wealth dissipates and eventually is gone over time. And then another myth is that kids are lazy and they don't work. But clearly there are people that are in the news and the media, social media particularly, that have a lot of money, that inherited that money, and they appear to just be living off of the grand estate of whoever they got that money from, and then they don't really work, they don't really have a job, they seem like idiots. I mean, that's a subject for multiple movie plots in Hollywood, and we're all familiar with that storyline. Because they're lazy and privileged and arrogant and whatever it happens to be, and certainly those people do exist, and that's too bad. But more than likely, with some wealthy second or third generation heirs, they do choose to spend their inheritance away. But there are other members of those families that are second and third generation inheritance recipients, I guess, that they do work hard their entire life. But that doesn't mean necessarily that that the effects of the whether it's inflation or the depreciation of certain assets that they chose not to get rid of, or whatever it happens to be, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that they're not working hard, or that they're not trying to generate their own wealth. It just means that it could be that things have changed. Perhaps they inherited a business or a company, and there's certainly wealth associated with that. But if it's a key punch card machine operator business, that business is out of business, and has been gone for 30 years. And so did they choose to, move with the times and continue to look forward? It can slip away as fast as if it was your only source of income if you're not paying attention to it. And so another myth that they mentioned is most millionaires inherited their wealth, and we already know that that's not true. Only about 30% of wealthy families maintain their wealth beyond the first generation of their kids, and only 10% go beyond 3 generations. Only 10%. So 1 out of 10 families that we would consider wealthy succeed in passing along successfully that wealth beyond the grandchildren and so forth. And so that means, conversely, that people who are wealthy that you're hanging out with today, or that you see, whether it is in person or online or social media or whatever, there's a good chance that they actually made that money themselves, however they did it. And there's also as we know, a significant chance that they're going to blow that money by the time they pass it on to their kids or maybe to their grandkids. And so that did lead me to thinking about the generational wealth of the people that built Sunnyside. So there is and I've talked about him on, I think in the first season, story about the Jasper Thompson family. We're not related to them. It's 2 different Thompsons. But Jasper built Sunnyside, and he moved across the country from Ohio to Iowa as a like an 18-year-old boy with his family. And then when they got to the Mississippi River, there was a family that was moving on to another part of the state, but they needed assistance with their small children and what they were bringing in their covered wagon. And so he agreed for a fee to go with them, and did so. And then his family continued on to northeast Iowa, and then he went more towards the center of the state and worked there, and was like, here's an 18-year-old kid in the late 1800s who is helping this family that he doesn't know move across the state of Iowa to the center area and then get them established. And then now he's done that, so he gets paid for that, but he doesn't have a job, but he gets there in the fall. So then he helps the farmers bring in the harvest, so he's got money there because you need money to live, to get shelter, to buy food. And he can't get back to the northeast part of the state because he doesn't have enough money in his pocket, so he helps the farmers. The farmers like him. Then they ask him if he can teach, and then he tells them that he can teach. He's not a teacher, but he told them that he could. He does a good job teaching, actually, at the country school. Negotiates a raise into the second semester. Gets that in the springtime. When school is out, he moves on, goes back to Northeast Iowa, meets his wife, and again, hard scrabble, works with his hands, builds stuff, works as a mason, in trade for building a stone barn for a farmer in Northeast Iowa. He gets a little piece of land from that farmer. There he builds a house for his new wife. They start a family, and eventually his brothers are moving further into the state of Iowa, north and central Iowa, where we live. They come to our town. He then has had some more children and a little bit more success and built a good reputation as a mason. He comes to Forest City, starts working with his brothers, and on and on and on, and never had a degree from college. Not sure what his degree, if he graduated from high school, if that was even a thing, and yet was very successful. So that by the time that he passed away in the just over 100 years ago, in the early 1920, I think 1921, just after his wife died in like 1918, 1919, they had built Sunnyside. They had thousands and thousands of acres of land that they farmed or had farmed out, and that was back still in really not, there were some tractors, but not very many, so it's still a lot, mostly done by horses, and just thousands and thousands of acres of land, and tremendous amount of wealth, and a big part of the founding of Forest City, or the development of Forest City. And his sons then become, his children become there's a doctor, there's a lawyer, there's, his daughters marry into other families, and then they pass along this wealth, including Sunnyside, which then goes to a guy named Bert Thompson. Again, these are not my relatives, but it's just odd that it just happens that we've always owned it as Thompsons, just having that last name in a weird way. And then Bert is a Harvard lawyer and a big guy in town, and everybody knows him, and he's traveled the world, and part of organizations, et cetera, but he rents out Sunnyside to some degree. They live here and part of it for a while, but most of the time they just live in town. And then that eventually passes to his grandson. So now we're on Jasper Thompson, who created all of this wealth. His second generation successfully maintains it to some degree, but it dissipates as they start to sell off their land because dad's gone, and they start selling off their land because it's an investment. So they take the money. Then it goes on to his grandson, Bruce, and Bruce slowly but surely sells everything at this point, and a lot of it to my grandpa. And so so then now my grandpa comes in from a different. His dad didn't have hardly anything. And even though his grandpa did, they were contemporaries that lived near each other. My great grandpa T.I. and Jasper Thompson were contemporaries and sort of neighbors, and both had a lot of success, although ours not as much as Jasper Thompson. And then eventually he loses it. My great grandpa loses it, and some say gambling. We don't know if that's the case. And then there was his sons went out and continued in farming, including my great grandpa, who didn't have much of a farm of his own, had some troubles managing that, from what I understand. And then my grandpa and his brothers, they also went into farming, and my grandpa had success, and that's what we know as Sunnyside today. He eventually bought the farmland around him, and then eventually bought Sunnyside, and then we bought it from him. That's how that all works. So it's always been owned by Thompson, but two different families, and you can see there's an example of generational wealth disappearing in the first Thompson family. And I'm sure that weighed heavily on my own grandpa's mind as he set up his estate. He's gone. My grandpa and grandma passed away, and he set up the estate in a way that he felt would hold the farm together. Some say it's like one of the last contiguous farms in the state of Iowa, and so in other words, you can walk around the whole thing, and you'll still stay on the property. That's not common necessarily in Iowa farming anymore, and so that's a unique characteristic. And I'm sure he was very concerned about how that would pan out. Having, again, not a college diploma, my grandpa didn't go to college. He felt bad about that. He felt like he could have gone. I think he wanted to serve in the pulpit, to be honest with you, and never did. My grandma did, but he didn't. And so here's a guy with a high school degree, which he's very proud of. And that was an important day for him. In fact, it wasn't that important to his dad whether he graduated from high school or not. I don't know if my great grandpa graduated from high school. I assume he did, but I don't know that. But my grandpa did, and that was very important to him. He never went on to college. And so yet a very good, farm manager, and with my dad, built the farm that we know today. And so that is something that he was probably deeply concerned about as he neared the end of his life and tried to find a way, I think at this point pretty successfully, of how to hold it all together in kind of I don't say it's an eternal trust. I don't know if that thing exists, but it's something very similar to that. It's quite sticky and very very well employed, and does hold everything together. And that assures his generation of children, who are all still, well, Aunt Nancy passed away, but the three of the four children for my dad and my aunts, they're still around, and so they have a benefit of that farm, and then grandchildren obviously will as well, and I'm sure that my grandpa's intention was that would pass down to great grandchildren and great 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 grandchildren, and on and on and on and on. I like that idea, but what we found is that with generational wealth, if it's just sitting there, people want their piece of the pie today. They want it now. They want that money now. And so he made it very difficult to do that. You can't just sell off property, which is I think hilarious and beneficial and frustrating for some. And so, but that's the lesson that goes with it. I'm sure that he watched his own generational wealth through his grandpa disappear through bad investments or whatever it happened to be. He experienced poverty or certain difficulties, certainly through the Great Depression, but then his dad didn't have much of a farm himself, and then he through his work as a young farmer, and then with the help of my dad, created this farm that we now have, and my brother farms a lot of it. And so there's I'm sure there's lessons there that he had in his own life, and I'm sure that he was pretty aware as a purchaser of land from the third generation of the previous Thompsons who built Sunnyside. It's like, well, I can just buy this land from you. Jasper hadn't set it up that way. His son, Bert, who was a Harvard lawyer and benefited from his dad's estate, didn't set it up that way. And so then Bruce just sold it all away and sold it to my grandpa. And I'm sure that the lesson in that was, I don't want this to happen to my family. And so there were steps taken to try to make that a better situation. However, if there's a will, and there definitely is, then there will probably become a way to screw that up as well. And that now I'm third generation from my grandpa. My kids are fourth generation. It's still holding together, but we'll see. How that all works out. And it reminds me of this. I want to tell you just a quick little book review. There's a guy named Shiraz Balolia, who it's a great name. not from America originally. He is an American citizen now, but his name is Shiraz Balolia, and he is the owner of Grizzly Industries, which is, if you are into woodworking like I am, you know that Grizzly is a big name at a good price, well-crafted machinery, and been around for a long time. And this guy is originally, he's Indian. His dad's from India, moved to East Africa, and so this guy Shiraz Balolia grew up in East Africa, Mombasa, and things like that, and became from one thing to another just a hard scrabble guy who was he just had, and literally this is the title of his autobiography is A Bad Case of Capitalism. And he was just always working, and he would work in his father's dry cleaning business and in his accounting firm. And then they decided in the 70s, I think his family, his dad and his brothers moved to Canada because there was more opportunity there. Then Shiraz came over with his family. He's working with his dad. He's doing dry cleaning. They got dry cleaning businesses all over. Shiraz is an innovator, but he's also got interests. He's a young man. He likes woodworking. He saw a wood lathe that he wanted, but he couldn't afford it. So he found some broken down lathes, and he had been used to working in dry cleaning, and so he knew how to fix some machinery, and so he did that and got these things up and running again. And then he sold it, made a little bit of a profit, and then he decided, hey, I could probably do this quite a bit. And then he kept buying old woodworking machinery and remodeling it and fixing it and turning that into a business, to the point where it just became he wanted to import new businesses. So then he goes to sets up a lifelong relationship in Taiwan, and so on and so forth, until eventually he owns this just incredible business and multiple businesses. He's probably started 30 businesses in his life. In fact, the article that was written about him says he's probably starting a new business as you read this. But I just want to read a couple of things with Shiraz Balolia. So here's a guy this is clearly an example of first generation wealth of what he's created. And he's been in his early 80s now, I suppose. When he moved to Canada, when he moved to North America, he'd start at 2:30 in the morning every morning. So he's a young man. I mean, he's not a teenager at this point. He's married, so he's in his 20s. He'd get up at 2:30 in the morning. He'd borrow his brother's car, pick up a bunch of bundled newspapers in Vancouver, and then he just had a memorized route, and then he delivered all these newspapers. He's a man delivering newspapers at 2:30 and starting at 2:30 in the morning, and then he would take all the papers up to the elevator on the top floor of these big buildings. Then he'd start running. He'd toss a newspaper at the front door of every subscriber on his list, and then he'd sprint down the stairwell to the next door and keep on going. And he'd deliver 150 newspapers. He'd be done about 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and then he'd go back to the apartment where he lived to sleep till about 8:30. He earned $1 per address per month is what he did. And when he got to America, he just talked about how incredible it was for him, and how clean the water tasted, and how much variety there was in the stores and places that he visited and dreamed about being able to buy things. And eventually he I'll read that to you. So he becomes an American. This is important. This guy Shiraz Balolia says, and I think it's important for Americans to hear from an immigrant. I can personally attest that this is the best country to live in. Most immigrants will agree with me. Anything is possible here. You are limited only by your imagination and ambition. As a proud American who came from another country, I can say from my heart, do not take this amazing country for granted. It is truly the land of freedom and boundless opportunity. It had long been my dream to become an American myself, and after 5 years of being green card holders and residing continuously in the United States, in October 1993, his wife and their children walked into a wonderful oak-paneled room with high ceilings in Seattle, raised their hands in front of a judge, and pledged allegiance to the United States of America. He has just a tremendous number of hobbies. Woodworking, obviously, is one of them. He's also a like national champion for the United States in target shooting, which is there's an interesting chapter in there. Here's this Indian ethnicity, East African immigrant via Canada to the United States who is Muslim and and is has a lot of gunpowder because he's cheap, right? He makes his own rounds that he would use for target practice, and he's like a legit national champion target shooter, and as just a litany of international awards. But also after 9/11, he got a visit because he's a Muslim guy with black powder and so somebody called him in, and of course he shows the ATF around, and they realize that this isn't their guy, but that was an interesting chapter in his life. And then he had lawsuits and he's had ups and downs, and not every business that he started was successful. Some of them were not successful at all, and lessons learned. He recounts all of that in his book. But one of the things that he did in order to buy a particular piece of property, in order to expand his business, and certainly the internet made it so that his distribution is what it is today. But prior to the internet, this was all done by hand. Then you had to have distribution centers. It doesn't have a lot of kind words for Memphis, I'll say that. But he does indicate that one of the properties that he wanted to buy in order to build a warehouse so that he could continue to ship things was owned by a man who just was not interested in selling it, and this man was particularly concerned about it would be his kids. It would go to his kids, and his kids would then get the money for that. And Shiraz was a pretty smart guy, and he said, well, he called this guy several times. And it wasn't pestering him. It'd be like every 6 months or so, and he'd keep checking in. But then he finally got the information that said, the guy's like, well, it's going to go to my kids, is what it's going to, when they sell it, they can sell it to you. And Shiraz is like, well, how old are you? And he's like, well, I'm 80. Well, I'm like, well, you're probably going to live for another 20 years. You sound like a young man on the phone. So compliments get you everywhere. And, they start talking, and Shiraz advises him, wouldn't it be better for you to sell it to me now? Take that money that you have, put it into a trust, and then with limitations, and then your children can use that as you see fit now, as you set it out for them. They didn't earn that. They didn't have anything to do with you owning this property. This is a gift to them that more likely than not, they're going to blow. As we know now, statistically, the second generation is going to blow that money. 70% of them will anyway, and then grandkids for sure, 90%, gone. So that made sense to the guy, and Shiraz was able to purchase the property. The guy did do that. No idea how it turned out for his kids or grandkids, but worked out for Shiraz, and that's what made me think about inviting you to read that book, A Bad Case of Capitalism. Here's a guy who is a go-getter, and that is the thing, is that he came from poverty to some degree. He experienced poverty. He had hard times intentionally. His father taught him how to do things. He didn't make it easy on him. They didn't necessarily always have see eye to eye in business relationships, and eventually they did split off and from one another and still maintained a relationship, but they had different business ideas, but the point is that they had this. Here's a guy that just worked his entire life and enjoyed working and enjoyed innovating and enjoyed just having a mind for business and fun. And this is a story of capitalism from an immigrant's perspective to the United States that I read the book and recommend it to you. It's not very much. It's A Bad Case of Capitalism. If you like, woodworking tools, you're probably familiar with Grizzly, and as I am, and that's something that I thought I wanted to pass along to you. And he is a guy that understands generational wealth, but also to make that first generation that creates wealth. They are go-getters. They've probably experienced a little bit of poverty. They've probably experienced a little bit of difficulty, or a lot of difficulty, perhaps. Maybe they've earned and lost and won and lost wealth throughout their life. And so any gift that gets passed on to children shouldn't be expected, shouldn't certainly be worshipped, and it shouldn't be something that they expect to be able to use however they want, because they will inevitably probably fritter it away, as we started with that. And that leads me to the final part of this. I just want to wrap it up, I think, as we do here at the sunny side of life, talking about the lessons that we can give our children, the opportunities that we can show them if they work hard, if they stay focused on recognizing who is God, and that they're not worshiping money, not worshiping wealth, not being foolish, and investing in wisdom, seeking good counsel, learning how to work with their hands and being useful. Those things are all elements of the book of Proverbs. The business school of Solomon is located in the book of Proverbs. Certainly if you listen to Bible in a Year last year, and you continue to do so anytime, if you go back and listen to those episodes, you'll find in Proverbs all kinds of business advice. And on top of that, dating advice and love advice and leadership advice and just the advice that you want. But in this particular case regarding wealth, Solomon is quite astute. And I just want to wrap it up with these things today. We'll start with what Proverbs say, what we can tell our children. This is what Solomon was writing Proverbs for, was his own children, which were myriad number, lots of, like beyond Elon Musk, way beyond. Solomon had lots of kids, lots of wives. Here is, but it's also the children of Israel, and they're therefore through Christ by all of us, for all of us. So Proverbs 1:8 through 19, this is a father's exhortation to acquire wisdom. That's the important thing right there. My child, listen, when your father corrects you, don't neglect your mother's instruction. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. My child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. They may say, come and join us. Let's hide and kill someone. Just for fun. Let's ambush the innocent. Let's swallow them alive like the grave. Let's swallow them whole like those who go down to the pit of death. Think of the great things we'll get. We'll fill our houses with all the stuff we take. Come, throw in your lot with us. We'll all share the loot. My child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their paths. They rush to commit evil deeds. They hurry to commit murder. If a bird sees a trap being set, it knows to stay away. But these people set an ambush for themselves. They are trying to get themselves killed. Such is the fate of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. And then Proverbs 6 through 11. Here's some lessons for daily life. Take a lesson from the ants. How many times have you said to your children? Take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they have no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer, gathering food for the winter. But you, lazy bones, how long will you sleep? When will you wake up? A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. Yeah, because we want our kids to know how to work, how to be hard scrabble, how to deliver those papers at 2:30 in the morning like Shiraz Balolia did. And then from Proverbs 22, verses 1 through 7, this is a good lesson for all of us. Choose a good reputation. Sorry, that's not. 22. Choose a good reputation over great riches. Being held in high esteem is better than silver or gold. The rich and poor have this in common: the Lord made them both. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. True humility, fear of the Lord, leads to riches, honor, and long life. Corrupt people walk a thorny, treacherous road. Whoever values life will avoid it. Direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Just as the rich rule the poor, so the borrower is servant to the lender. What does that tell you? Shiraz Balolia puts bankers in the same boat as lawyers, which you can read the book to find out what he's all about regarding that. And finally, we'll wrap it up on this as we find our sunny side of life for the week. Proverbs chapter 8, verses 17 through 21. Just know this. This is what Solomon says. Solomon says in Proverbs 8, chapter 8, 17 through 21. I love all who love me, says the Lord. Those who search will surely find me. I have riches and honor, as well as enduring wealth and justice. My gifts are better than gold, even the purest gold. My wages better than sterling silver. I walk in righteousness in paths of justice. Those who love me inherit wealth. I will fill their treasuries. So that's where it starts. Starts with a prayer for wisdom, a faith in God, and eternal salvation, redemption through Christ. We build that into our children. We have that communication. We can talk about the true generational wealth. That's what's the most important thing, passing on the faith in Christ and the life that we live because of that. And then the communication for the other forms of wealth will fall in place. You have to have it. You have to talk. You have to understand it's a tool. It's not a God. It should not be worshipped. It will only disappoint you in those ways. But by staying steadfast, paying attention, working every day, we will find that all of this stuff does come together. And maybe then we can say, well, we did do the right thing. We did, as parents, give our children what they absolutely needed.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
And I hope that that's the case. And I hope that you have a great week. And the rest of the week as we roll into May, have the opportunity to share your faith, your good words, your kindness, and your helping hands, and be the sunny side of someone else's life.
When the shadows fall and doubts begin to creep, remember together we're strong, never weak. Lift your neighbor up with kindness every day. Let your actions speak the words you want to say.
The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. None of this is possible, of course, without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory.
Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life. Be the sunny side of someone else's life. Share your light and joy through struggle and strife. Keep your heart open and your soul always bright. Together we will share this sunny side life.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life in Christ be made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.